Hello, my name is Claire Lim. This is NME. We are celebrating all things the Sex Pistols because the Danny Boyle-directed TV series Pistol is streaming now on Disney+. So we're here with Rakel from Dreamwife, Chardine from Big Joanie, and we're here with journalist Alan Jones. Hello everybody, it's lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining me. So before we start, we're going to set the scene a little bit and go right back to the late 70s. And I wanted to ask you, Alan, to tell us where we were at that point with politics, music. What was it like transporting us back?
Well, I think we have to start in more in the mid-70s. I mean, the Pistols and punk didn't come along out of nothing. There had been a build-up to it. In terms of the politics, anybody who was sort of under 18 thought there was no future for them, which the Pistols then put into words. There was great disaffection, there was unemployment. It was a very dreary time. It wasn't very exciting musically. You know, every time you turned around, there was a band in wizards' hats and capes, clogs, singing songs about trolls and witches. I mean, it was dreadful. There was a feeling that something needed to break the monopoly of all those bands because they were boring to write about as well. So the music press wasn't terribly lively.
Do you feel like when we're talking about the era, and let's just talk about the opportunities and the feeling amongst young people, does that resonate with you now? Do you feel that we're back at that stage again? Is history repeating itself?
Absolutely, and considering, you know, the cost of living at the moment. But when Big Joanie started, we started on a sort of very DIY feminist punk scene. So our thing was very much around finding our voices as women within what is like now like a dominantly sort of male scene.
Because I come from that DIY scene as well, and I witnessed that when I put on bands. Would you say it's still really hard for creatives like you to break through?
Yeah. We formed in art school. We didn't necessarily know how these things work. We didn't know that you needed a promoter to put on a gig. Learned that later. Like, we all just got our friends together, house parties. There were so many house parties in Brighton. We started playing out in drag clubs as well. Like, we just really didn't know how to enter into this music press scene until, you know, we got a bit of help.
You mean we can rehearse here as long as we want?
Yep. We're rewiring the entire building. It'll take years.
Thanks, Dad.
Just make sure we get right in your roles when you're famous.
Yeah, all right.
Cheers.
When did you feel the swell happen for the Sex Pistols? When did you start to really feel that, oh, these guys are coming up?
They started to get a lot of press, as I say. When I first heard about them from Neil Spencer, who was the editor of NME. He'd seen them, I think, a couple of nights earlier at the Marquee, and he was absolutely raving about them. The most exciting thing that he'd seen for ages. Didn't see the Sex Pistols for the first time and think, wow,
Like, oh my God,
this is going to happen in such a huge way. I saw the Pistols a few more times after that, and it still wasn't happening. I guess it would have been late summer of '76.
Okay.
I went to the Lyceum. There was an all-nighter, and they were just transformed.
Come see us play. We're awful. Ladies and gentlemen, Sex Pistols.
What scene do you think you embody now, and do you think scenes like that still matter in music today?
I think community matters.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about London is that there's so many scenes, and you can just like pop into so many of them. Even depends on where you live in London, really.
Would you say that you've created a community, or did you join one at the time?
There's all these different sort of majority people of colour, like punk bands and rock bands or shoegaze bands that are coming through, and that's really exciting, and we all sort of like connect with each other as well. But I feel it's actually quite a good time for guitar music. Yeah.
I never went away so much, but I didn't see it so much in front of me anymore, and
People are just waiting. We're waiting for the right band. And, you know, so much social unrest, and we're seeing the same thing now.
I am creating a revolution here. I don't want musicians, I want saboteurs, assassins, I want shock troops. Steve's the real deal. He's got nothing else to live for.
So I wanted to talk about Nevermind the Bollocks here, the Sex Pistols. Alan, lay the groundwork for the significance of this album. Tell us what's going on at this time.
It seemed an anticlimax when it came out.
Really? Why would you say it's an anticlimax?
Nevermind the Bollocks, I don't even think of it as a punk album. It's a very, very good hard rock album. I mean, it's very, very different to the approach of the Pistols that I originally saw in terms of the, you know, even when they were at their best live, you know, there was still a ragged edge to them. But, you know, there's sonic perfectionism at work. The Pistols' career prior to it seemed to overshadow the actual arrival of the record. There had been so much before it. I think the first Elvis Costello album, New Boots and Panties, first Clash album, first Damned album. You know, why did it take so long?
I think it still has a lot of significance today. I mean, the themes of anarchy in music, which the Disney Plus series Pistol explores a little bit as well. Is anarchy still present in music?
I don't know, today, for example, one of the reasons why we started our band, we just wanted to see more women in rock. And I just didn't see loud women. There were none. And it just felt, I really just wanted to be loud and be allowed to be loud. So that is maybe an anarchy in a way, is that I wanted to be loud and I wanted to see more loud women.
I think there was that sort of feeling in that punk scene. Our punk scenes now are much more sophisticated, really, in terms about what it is that we want the world to look like. So I actually feel like we're much more like sort of around sort of building community politically and, you know, actually trying to make some change in the world that goes beyond just ourselves. A bit more.
Well, there's one thing for sure, you wouldn't be able to have had this kind of conversation.
Oh yeah, that would have been I would have got a glass on my face. So.
Oh, I hope.
Our manager's trying to bring down the government.
We're going to change the world.
Our singer is fully insane. Our bass player starts fights for laughs. This is punk!
Steve is a sexual maniac.
What the series does quite well is it places women in a man's world, you know, and you can kind of like see that through the characters. You've got Chrissy Hind in this series and things like that as well. But I wanted to ask, do you think that what you're doing is changing things, and do you think more should be done? Does it still feel like you're women living in the man's world, or do you think now actually we're addressing the balance a little bit here?
Very much going back to this community aspect, is that my band, our mantra is, if you have a platform, share it. We do this thing for our headline shows where we put out an open call, and we've asked women, trans, non-binary musicians, you know, if there's one person that identifies as that in the band, to apply for an open call to come and join us on tour.
I love that.
Being seen is a political act.
Vivian wants to create a revolution.
I want to summon darkness out of its own shadows and into the light, so that out of chaos, the future can emerge.
Let's talk about God Save the Queen. And I wanted to ask you, Al, about the single being banned, why it caused such a stir at the time. Like, tell us a little bit about that, please, because it's quite a thing. And there was a boat party as well I wanted to talk about. So let's talk about the single first.
Yes, it was to celebrate the launch of God Save the Queen, and it was actually Jubilee Day.
Yes, it coincided with Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee.
Silver Jubilee, yeah.
Which was very on brand, I guess. But tell me about that build-up and the press and the furore.
I mean, it was a great opportunity for a single like that. I did the Melody Maker cover story around the release of the single. Everybody was in the mood to celebrate the Jubilee, and nobody wanted anything to tarnish it or any criticism of it. So they knew they were going to be in for a lot of flack. At the same time, they knew it was going to sell van loads.
Yeah, of course.
But they were going to have to put up with this thing. And we went out just to take some photographs around the Virgin offices in Portobello Road. I was walking with Johnny and Sid, and this policeman obviously recognised Sid and Johnny, stopped us. We're interrogated, but we all had a name stick, and we're just walking down the damn street. And I remember Rotten turning to me and said, this is Britain at the moment, this is England, they all hate us, the establishment's going to kill us. And of course the single comes out and it does sell van loads. the BBC wouldn't list it at #1 because it was too controversial. Rod Stewart, yeah. I think it was a couple of weeks after I did the interview, I was invited on the boat trip, and it was meant to celebrate, you know, the Pistols getting another record out. Word had obviously spread. There were dozens and dozens of punks all clamouring to get on the boat and feeling, you know, hard done by. They didn't have an official invite.
That sounds like zombies.
But there were punks leaping from the embankment. It said, you know, as he was pulling away, you could hear all these kind of splashes.
So it does sound like zombies.
Zombie attack.
Yeah.
And you survived.
Yeah. And anyway, as I say, it was meant to be this huge celebration, but it seemed to me anything but. It got a bit scrappy at times, and it became more and more pronounced from the boat as the afternoon went on. And as we were going under the bridges in front of us, I could see some punks had raced down the embankment, and they got onto one of the bridges in front of us, and there were some road signs. And as the boat went under the bridge, they just threw it, this big metal road sign, which fortunately didn't hit anybody, we killed them. But I just remember this big clang on the deck and thinking, that's kind of a death knell for the afternoon somehow. Yeah. On the way back from Putney, the idea was that the boat would stop opposite the Houses of Parliament, and the Pistols would play a set. But as we were going towards the Houses of Parliament, which were on our left, to our right, there was a flotilla of police boats, and they turned on SWAT lines. It was all very dramatic. We got outside opposite Parliament, and the Pistols did play, and it was the best time I ever saw them. It was just brilliant, because the police by then were on megaphones telling us to, you know, go back now, go back. And the Pistols just played, and it was just, you know, an astonishingly electrifying moment. 16 people were arrested. And I just remember just standing in the middle of the embankment. There was all this kind of Jubilee bunting in the street, blood on the ground, and, you know, the police sirens as they were taking everybody away. You know, this is England.
We're going to kick this country awake if it kills us.
Yes! That's more like it. We are going to the toppermost of the poppermost.
What?
What? That's what the Beatles used to say when they were in dressing rooms like this. You know, thinking they'd never get anywhere.
Beatles? Oh, you've bloody jinxed us.
We're going to need our own saying.
How about...
No more Beatles. I've got it. Get pissed. Destroy.
Sounds like at the time you had the establishment and you had the powers that be that just didn't want anyone, you know, crossing them, changing new ideology or different ideology. Would you say that's true now? Do you see that now?
It's so much based upon not knowing and isolation, being your own bubble, not looking outside of what's happening around you. So of course, and especially now, as you said earlier, you know, you weren't scared, you were excited on that boat. Yeah. And with anything regarding to that is just stepping out of your comfort zone and actually getting to know the community around you, getting to know people
100%.
that aren't exactly just like you. So yeah, of course, those are linked. And I mean, it's definitely scary. It's happening right now.
Because it feels like there's change and it feels like good things are happening. But then I see so much negativity still and fear and anger towards pockets of people and pockets of communities.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. It's all about maintaining this sort of British social order, and anything that pushes back against that needs to be sort of quashed.
Do you think in a way there might be some positives to that, because some people who don't go seek the gritty and seek the grassroots stuff, perhaps getting it packaged to them is the only way to be nice here? What do you think?
I feel like if you're the sort of person that needs to be sold something in a package, then maybe you're not the person that is. And there's always going to be those kind of people that don't want to be in that suburban space. They don't want to be sold something. They're seeking out something else.
We like noise. It's our choice. It's good. We're keeping that.
Easy and simple. Good.
And I don't work. I just speed. That's all I need.
Yeah, some of it's all right, Steve. If I could read it... Honestly, did you even go to school?
No, not really.
Don't worry. I'll work it out.
Well, the humanity and creativity, shaking things up pushes things forward. but there's always a great resistance to the push.
You know, particularly with sort of Black Lives Matter and just the conversation that are around now, I think people have been like really wanting to hear people talk about stuff. So we talk about stuff on stage, and you know, it's always a positive response, never a negative one. And even when we play in front of audiences that are majority white men, we come off stage, people are like, oh, you know, I really like your band. So there has been definitely like a shift. It also just shows like how strong those women were to be putting up with like 1970s sexism, basically. Like there was a lot of knowing in what they were doing and a lot of knowing in their presentation and how they dressed and stuff. Like it wasn't by accident, a lot of it was by design.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk about, Alan, the demise of the band, because they're such a short-lived band. They had one album, there was so much furore around them, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
What happened?
There was a lot of violence, and a lot of it was directed at them. But off they went to America. They decided to go through the South, where they knew that attitudes towards them would be, there would be a lot of downright hatred directed towards them.
Do you think, Alan, if they had, say, imagine that they'd gone on and they were happy as Larry and they'd released 10 albums, do you think they would have had the same impact?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's just because it's such a self-contained period.
Yeah.
And it's got it's got a dramatic story arc. So much happened to them in, 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
It was, packed with incident, packed with controversy.
What do you think the true legacy is that the Sex Pistols left in their wake?
It's the scene that they were part of and were, to a certain extent, figureheads that has the legacy rather than the Pistols, I think. There's a great fascination still with them. It'll always be seen as emblematic of a need for change, as a way to make your own scene, to create your own scene. Don't ask for permission, just do it.
Yeah, I love that. Don't ask, just do it. So I'd like to thank Alan, Chardine and Rakel. It was really insightful. Thank you so much for chatting today. If you want to watch Pistol, which is the new series streaming on Disney+, you can watch it right now. It's bloomin' excellent. I'm Claire Lim, this is NME, and thank you for watching.